everyone. Today, you are in for another panel discussion sponsored by the Unity Church of El Cajon. My name is Susan Jarboe, and with me today are my friends Kathy Cronin and Reverend Linda Burdett. Today's topic is an interesting one. It's scapegoating. But before we get into that particular subject, let's have a prayer. So, settle into your seats, take a couple of deep breaths if you wish. Heavenly Parent, we come before you today in humility and faith. We thank you for all you have given us and the many blessings in our lives. We ask for your guidance and strength. Show us the way and fill us with courage and wisdom. Help us to remember your love and grace and to be faithful in our service to you. Give us the patience and understanding to face life's challenges with grace. We ask these things in your name. Amen. Today's reading is an article by Richard Rohr from the Center for Action and Contemplation. And this is a reading he put forth recently, Sunday, March 29th, 2026, on Palm Sunday, which is an interesting choice. Father Rohr identifies the human impulse to solve problems by blaming others. The human delusion seems to be this: we think someone else is always the problem, not ourselves. We tend to export our hate and evil elsewhere. In fact, this problem is so central to human nature and human history that its overcoming is at the heart of all spiritual teachings. Mature spirituality tries to keep our own feet to the fire, saying, just as the prophet Nathan did in convicting King David, "You are the one." Human nature always wants to either to play the victim or to create victims, and both for the purposes of control. In fact, the second follows from the first. Once we start feeling sorry for ourselves, we will soon find someone else to blame, accuse, or attack, and with impunity. It settles the dust quickly, and it takes away any immediate shame, guilt, or anxiety. In other words, it works, at least for a while. So for untransformed people, there is no reason to stop creating victims or playing the victim. If we read today's news, we see the pattern has not changed. Hating, fearing, or diminishing someone else holds us together for some reason. The creating of necessary victims is in our hard wiring. Philosopher René Girard calls this scapegoat mechanism the central pattern for the creation and maintenance of cultures worldwide since the beginning. It's hard for spiritual people to hear, but the most persistent violence in human history has been sacred violence, or more accurately, sacralized violence. Human beings have found a most effective way to legitimate their instinct toward fear and hatred. We imagine we are fearing and hating on behalf of something holy and noble, like God, religion, truth, morality, our children, or love of country. It takes away our guilt. As a result, we can even think of ourselves as representing the moral high ground or as being responsible and prudent. It never occurs to most people that they can become what they fear and hate. It's a well-kept secret. Without wisdom, we justify violent and even immoral actions for the sake of something honorable, like protecting the children. Unless scapegoating can be consciously seen and named through concrete rituals, owned mistakes, shadow work, or repentance, the pattern will usually remain unconscious and unchallenged. The scriptures rightly call such ignorant hatred and killing sin. Jesus came precisely to take away our capacity to commit it by exposing the lie for all to see. Jesus stood as the fully innocent one who was condemned by the highest authorities of both church and state, Jerusalem and Rome, an act that should create healthy suspicion about how wrong even the highest powers can be. He will show the world how wrong it was about sin, about who was really in the right, and about true judgment. There is a reference to Rene Girard here, and I can refer you to a book, Violence and the Sacred. Um, and he does believe and makes an excellent argument for scapegoating being hardwired in us as a way we create unity and culture with others. I'd like to open this discussion now and ask my fellow panelists what they're thinking about in terms of scapegoating.
Thank you, Susan, for bringing that topic. Boy, scapegoating is very prevalent right now. Everybody's pointing fingers and blaming this one or that one for this and that, and I'm just as guilty of that type of thing. As I thought it is, we either blame others or we play the victim, and so often, jet scapegoating is sort of a protection of ourselves, of not wanting to look. And I I have to say that I often um do put the blame on others. It's, it's there. I point the finger, and as they always say, as you point the finger out, three more are pointing back at you. So sometimes it's like, take that step back and say, if I'm lashing out or if I'm accusing someone else of doing something, what is my part in this? Some things we can't, you know, there's bigger pictures that we have no control over, but if I can take care of the little things with that I have control over, so if I can take care of the things and start not pointing out fingers to others or putting the blame on others. And if I choose to say, rather than blaming, looking at solutions, looking at alternative actions, and on the other side of, rather than playing the victim, sort of seeing, that I'm whole, and that I'm not being a victim. Some of it may just be my perception in this situation, and that I was the scapegoat in that situation. That So that self-analysis, it takes so much work, with human endeavors. We've all been the wounded party, and we've all been causing the injuries. We've been on both sides of it, of, being the victim and being the perpetrator. So at times it's like recognizing, if I have harmed others, then I need to step back and approach them and ask, their forgiveness. And then there's the times that I have to go and do forgiveness if I feel that I was the scapegoat, is doing, maybe self forgiveness because they don't see or don't have it. can can I look at the broader picture? Can I look at the universal, the things that are happening, and sort of see where it's at and stop, stop my negative thinking to it and look for, turning it over to a higher power to come to resolve, putting trust into a resolve with this rather than constantly, blaming blaming the circumstances around me on others. So I think a lot of this, the topic for me is like, I need to really go into my prayer time and into my spiritual thing when either I have been the perpetrator or I have been the victim, and start to really put into that trust. So I appreciate you bringing that because it really made an awareness for me. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Kathy, for your words. And it's now Reverend Linda's turn to respond.
I didn't want to jump in if you still had more to share with Kathy. For me, this is why these panel discussions are so helpful and so important, that we have so many different perspectives and ideas. Even though there's only three of us in this panel, I think we're three very different perspectives. There's a family member in my family that his best coping skill, maybe his only coping skill, is blaming somebody. Whatever happens, it's as if he feels like, oh, I have somebody to blame, so I'm done. It's not my problem anymore. It's their problem, and doesn't do anything for himself to rectify the situation, no matter what happens. And it just baffles me. But listening and hearing that we are hardwired to scapegoat, that's a way we build community, I can see that. If I'm blaming somebody, then I can gather allies and we can all blame that person or country or situation, and now we have something in common. My enemy's enemy is my friend kind of thing. Yeah, we all have a problem with that, so we're all on the same side. Um, I don't believe that I do this now. I in my disease, when I was in active addiction, being the victim and playing the victim was a wonderful way to get sympathy, to get money, to get somebody to step in and help me, and it kept me sick. Learning to take responsibility and stand up and know my part has really helped me an awful lot. But having you read the reading by Richard Rohr and sharing your stories have really given me a new perspective on understanding, identifying, and empathizing with people who are scapegoating. And hopefully I can be of service at a greater level. So thank you so much for this topic.
Yes, I was drawn to this topic because I am really sick and tired of hearing one political party blame the other, and then the other blames the first political party. And it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And I'm puzzled as to why more people don't see that this is the game that's going on. And I wish we could take Richard Rohr's words and send them to everybody. So thank you, panelists, for your contributions to this subject. We also thank our audience for listening. And if you enjoyed this panel and think someone else might be able to use it, please send on the link. And if you're following Richard Rohr's suggestion, send the link to everybody you know. His solution is an ideal solution, and that is for us to become aware of this victimizing and scapegoating process. We don't consider ourselves experts, so we welcome your comments and ideas about any of our subjects. You can find out how to contact us at the end of this tape. There's information about that. And we'd also like to hear about any topics you might want us to address in the future. Each of us comes up with what we in particular are interested in. No one assigns us topics, and we would be happy to investigate something on your behalf and talk about it. We'd also like it if you would seriously consider being a presenter. You can present your own selections of material. No one's going to tell you what to present. And you could present just once if you want. Perhaps there's one subject that really gets to you in one way or another, and you'd like to tell people about it. We would welcome your participation. And even more so, we would welcome a regular contributor to the panel. And it's a wonderful way to get to know people in a deeper way than perhaps you have the occasion to know them before. So, thank you very much for joining us, and we hope you will tune in again to other panel discussions. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us, and let's stay connected and grow in spirit. We are on Facebook. Search for Unity Church of El Cajon and follow us and like our posts. You can reach us on YouTube at Unity Church of El Cajon. Please subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, and leave comments which can help us improve. We are on the web at unityofelcajon.org. Email or call our church office to receive our weekly newsletters, which lists all of our activities and opportunities to learn and grow together.